Welcome, DIYer, to the Dandysoap DIY channel. This is a step-by-step full-length tutorial on how to make a primitive snowman, including his top hat. By the time you finish this video, you will know how to make him and duplicate him or altering your pattern to suit you, and you'll know how to do it all the way down to his bell buttons. The pattern will be included along with the Grunge recipe, and we'll be using freezer paper with a plastic coating. You'll be able to find this in your local grocery store. The pattern's in the description box down below, and use muslin fabric, which is common in making primitive dolls. Quilting applique is commonly done with freezer paper because of the plastic coating. You'll be able to use your pattern over and over again, so if you plan to make to sell, this is the video for you. The original pattern I got from Pinterest of the Jack Frost, and you can see the copyright is 2006. It is a free printable, but I made modifications to it. Believe it or not, this is going to be my first primitive snowman that I have ever added arms and legs on, which is equivalent to any kind of doll. So I've made modifications, and I'm going to go over those with you. I will have both of these free printables. A link will be in the description box down below on the website. You can download either one that you pick, and this is the one we're going to be going by. I took and modified that pattern. I've already copied it on to my freezer paper. I wanted my pattern to fit on one sheet the size of a standard letter page. So I cut the freezer paper so that it will be easier for you. You can go straight to it with no problem. The benefit of putting on the freezer paper is this becomes our pattern, but we can also iron it onto the fabric really quick and cut it out really fast. So the modifications that I made is I added a leg. I added the legs. It already has the arm, and it has the body and face, head. But these modifications, I've blackened out the area that's not going to count. I still want the leg to be as wide as the arms so that they're in direct proportion of each other. And I just put it black. So when I actually iron this on to the fabric, that will be gone. I'll cut it out and it'll suit it. So that way you understand what's the deal on these patterns and what's happening here. So let's get our fabric ready and iron our pattern on so we can cut it out. Now I have my towel here because I'm going to use my easy press, and my fabric is doubled up to be the size of this pattern. We need to cut 2 of each. So basically if we iron it onto this, we can cut them both all at the same time if we like. I want to make sure that this is situated before I do that. I want this to look good and smooth and have these even enough that when I cut out my pattern, everything will be lined up. I love these already stains. I'm also going to be sharing with you my grubby recipe. I have shared it in a previous video, and it is the formula I will be using with aging my primitive snowman. We're going to make it first, and then we're going to grunge it and allow it to have that aged look, because the muslin looks really, really good already. We have our wax paper. It's super simple. You can lay it right down on there. I'm going to allow myself a little space because I'm going to make that foot come out just at least a ½ inch more. Whenever I do mine, I want him to have a bigger boot. So I'm just showing you what I'm going to do and why I'm doing it. Now, this is all you do. And your wax paper is there. That's it. It makes it super easy to cut out any pattern if you do it on your wax paper. And if you cut it up size as a sheet of paper, when you download this free printable onto your device, you can go ahead and pre-cut your wax paper. I'm calling this wax paper. Let me correct that. This is freezer paper. It has a plastic coating on the back of it. It can be reused over and over and over. All you have to do is re-iron it to what whatever fabric you're going to cut on. But you could print this directly onto the freezer paper if you cut it the size of a sheet of paper. I don't know why I keep re-ironing that. It's good to go. And now I'm ready to cut this out. To keep this from shifting, you know, you might want to get you a pin, because I left my extra fabric on there. You may you may cut yours to size and not pay it any mind. So let me get my fabric cutting shears. So now I'm basically just going to cut out my pattern and follow my black lines that I have cut. And see, your wax paper will stay in place. Remember though, you have your extra piece underneath if you do as I have. So I am going to place a pin in there because I want to hold those pieces together while I cut this out. Right, so that's my extra fabric. The way I've done this boot is I am cutting right here on this wide part that I told you about, because I wanted to make them in direct proportion of each other. Savoring my fabric. So just bear with me. Actually, I'll go down here. I'm going to go ahead and cut here so that you can see what I did to compensate, because I can use that muslin right there. When I go up this side, I've already compensated on the opposite side for it. And you will have that on your pattern. Just like this one. So see, now I've made that width almost as wide as this one. That's no problem. I can take up the difference when I sew it. I'm not really focused on that. I want to go here, and on this outer extreme of the black that I have colored in for you, you're going to see how I'm going to, and I want to go at least my finger width out with this particular boot. So I'm just going to make it work. I want that much for his boot. Okay, we got that done. So there is our boot. His leg and all. And here's your fill line. So you're only going to take and put polyfill up to this point. You want to leave this area open. That way you can adjust it if you want his legs to be really elongated or you want them to be shorter. So you leave this area open and only fill it to this fill mark. And once you see how long you want his legs or how short you want them, you can either fill it more or less to make up that difference. So that's why that is marked the way it is. Just so you know. And then I have his arms and his body to go. Now, as a FYI, if you laid out your muslin like I have, and you have this much left, and you want to keep that on there, by all means do. I don't think that I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to leave it. But what I am going to do, because I have you shown on the pattern the leg placement, I can really, really quickly take and put me a mark there so that I know once I've sewn this together where those legs are going to be placed. And then that way when I pull this off, I'm going to put markings up just a tad bit further because I need to give myself a seam allowance. And I'm planning on leaving that on there. Otherwise it will be further up. But that's going to be my leg placement. And when I pull this off, I have that already marked. And I just need to make sure that those two fabrics are clean and even. And that looks pretty good. There might be a little smidge there. Just take that. And I will do the same up here for the shoulders. I can mark those. And that is where the arms will be placed. Once again, I can real easily see that. And you'll do the same on your pattern. Just go ahead and mark it. I don't want to pull this off just yet until I have a chance to show you all the bits and pieces. So now I've got the arms marked and leg placements marked. You can do the same for the eyes if you need to, but I recommend that you only do it as a dot. So when you pull this back for your pattern, depending on how you're planning on doing it, I will be doing mine with thread. So I only need to mark it here. I only need to mark one piece. There's no need to mark the back because that'll be the back of his head. Only mark your front piece for the eyes. And then the nose we'll be making, you can do that out of some orange felt or orange fabric or out of the muslin and then paint it. So that is a separate piece you'll have to cut. So as you can see, we've got our pattern cut out. What we need to do now is cut out our other set of arms and legs so that we have our two pieces we can sew together for each arm and each leg. And all we have to do, because we put it on freezer paper, is we just take and pull off the freezer paper. It's that easy, and I mean, it comes off with a breeze. It's hard to believe that it actually stays clung to that fabric. And so it is totally reusable. I'm fixing to show you right here in a moment. Let me just go down here. We don't want these to ravel. Alright, so we have our one arm, our one leg, and of course we have our sunny Prim Snowman. We can pull this one off because we don't need it now. And let's get our fabric over here. We've got it doubled already, and we can warm it up a little bit. Don't hurt to give a little bit of warmth. Also, while I am doing this, on the original pattern, she has it marked right here to cut in the back for turning. Well, I'm just basically going to leave mine open either on the side or down here at the bottom and stuff it with polyfill. Same here. I'm not going to make an incision in him, but if it's easier for you to sew all the way around him, you know, if it's easier for you to sew him all the way around and then cut an opening and stuff him, that is a personal preference. I personally feel that this is already open, so when I go to sew it, I'll sew here and leave it open. So getting back to our original pattern, I'm basically just going to lay that paper there so that I can iron it. Now remember, I made this one bigger, so I am going to be better off to have at least one of these legs to go by what I modified it as, and then that way my legs are matching each other. At this proportion of the video, we've come to our sewing machine and we've sewn our parts. We've turned them inside out and we filled them with polyfill and closed the seams. We are now ready to begin assembling. A few things you need to bear in mind. Are you going to use plastic, eyes, and for the smile? Will you be using embroidery floss? Are you going to select felt for the nose or use the muslin and paint it orange as I did and attach it? When we return to the video, we are ready to assemble. You will note that I have already done that. I've done the eyes, nose, mouth, and we're ready to put him together of how you can make his joints bendable so he can be posed in different ways. This generic snowman primitive doll pattern, you'll be able to make many characters and personalize them, or perhaps just hand make them out of the love of it or to sell. And a notion you should add to your arsenal is turn it all. This will make those little small parts real swift. Turn them out and you're already putting the polyfill in them and ready to start assembling very quickly and efficiently. So let's get back to Sunny and start putting our parts together. So stay tuned. Now I have decided that I did his smile with my thread, and he has a little crook smile because, well, I got offline when I was going through there. I just doubled up some cotton thread and made his smile. So what I wanted to show you is I'm going to go ahead and attach his body parts and then grubby him, because we still need to make a hat. But I wanted to show you how I go about it. Because of the width of these arms and the shoulder attachment, I'm going to go ahead and baste it up so that I can draw the sleeve, per se, at the top of this, closed. And so I'm just putting my thread inside so that knot is hidden. And then that way, when I go to sew this on, it will already be snugged up pretty good. This will also be closed at the same time. You can, however, close this up on a machine if you like. But sewing the parts on, it's a personal thing. It really, truly, wholeheartedly just puts more heart into the making of your snowman. So I now have that basting stitch on, and I've got kind of a lock loop there, and see, now I can pull on that and draw it up a little bit snugger, and that way it keeps this side, and it makes it easier for me to attach it and put it in proportion. So just a FYI, just showing you how I go about it, closing the seam and attaching it to the shoulder at the same time without machine sewing it. But you do have the option, you know, you can close that up any way you like. This works pretty good. So I have my parts attached, and he is looking pretty good. I may still have to weight his bottom, and everything is tied down pretty well. This grunge recipe consists of 4 ingredients: instant coffee, vanilla flavoring, cinnamon, and alcohol. The reason for this is you can make your instant coffee any strength you want, depending on how dark or how light you want to dye your primitive doll. So maybe start out with a very strong, stiff cup. Add vanilla flavoring. This gives scent, but vanilla flavoring was made with alcohol, so it served as a fixative. To make sure of it, let's add some 70% rubbing alcohol as a fixative. Only a dash, say a teaspoon, and vanilla flavoring about a teaspoon. Add water as you need to deepen the color or lighten the color, and that will help you determine how to make your grunge recipe. Also consider using tea, a strong thing of tea, and then add cinnamon. That adds scent, and it also works as a protective too. Anytime you add spices to your grunge recipe, it's going to protect it against weevils, moths, bugs, and not inhibit or chew up and destroy your handmade primitive dolls. Make your grunge recipe as you see fit. The fixative's there. You don't necessarily have to keep it in a refrigerator, but maybe in a cool, dark spot. And whatever you don't use during your application, you can save, and then you can change the color by adding to it or you weaken it with water, and once again, achieving that overall primitive look that you're going for. Remember, the spices serve as a fixative as well as making the primitive smell good, and of course, these all make the fabric stiff. This will be sticky. You protect your surface and wash your hands, because it will stain everything it comes in contact with. Next, we're going to grunge. Now, this is a coffee grunge, and you may want to consider doing a tea dye grunge, or you may want to go with the coffee. This one is a really strong, dark one that I had done the candy canes with. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my chippy brush, and I'm going to water this solution down. It's already made. You've got the recipe, and I just want to weaken this because this is a very strong, and it comes out pretty dark, and I don't want that really dark. So I'm just going to weaken it by adding some water to it and make that a little bit lighter in color. And once I've put this on, it will be a matter of allowing it to dry. Now, additionally, when I put on my grunge here, my formula, which is more liquid than anything, and it does have some cinnamon in it, but I will take and sprinkle cinnamon onto my doll once I get my coffee stain put on there. And this only takes a moment to do. As you can see, it moves really swift, fast. The chippy brush does a fine job because this is very liquefied. I'm doing this straight on the mat. I'm not really worried about it staining anything in here. This is my project to do with you and show you how I did the Primitive Snowman. You'll have the pattern that you can download. The link will be in the description box underneath the video. It'll take you straight over there. And once I get this on, I will dash it with cinnamon. So I have him all applied with the solution of the coffee grunge, and I'm going to take my cinnamon and put some on him while he is wet, and that will just add to the primitiveness. And I included his nose, so I did his face and all the stitching and his nose, and that just really adds to the whole prim effect. It's really, really marvelous, and you're really going to enjoy using this recipe. It's quick, it's easy, it's super good, and it really dries to this beautiful hue. And when you make it really, really strong, you can do as I did and add water whenever you want to make it a tad bit weaker. And you can see I'm just massaging in the cinnamon and allowing it to attach itself to the doll. You can also paint your doll and give it a grunge look. Those are other options that you can do. And I'm just putting a little bit of cinnamon on there on the fabric while it's damp, and it just helps give it a good smell, and it aids in, you know, like some very inconspicuous kind of staining. And once this dries, I will dust off any differences, because it will just make these really natural stain patterns. Whoops. As usual, I always have a little overdue. But no worries, because whenever you go to dust this off, it's going to give it that great color. So the more you massage it and rub it in, the more you might get. But depending on his clothing too, as to what you may or may not get. So next, we're going to make him a hat. The top hat is optional. Some people may choose a different head dressing, but for the Primitive Snowman, I've included it. Here are the pieces you cut: fusible fleece, irons to your fabric, and do follow the next piece of this video to complete the top hat. You stitch your hat closed on the sides, or if you glue it, only go 3.5 inches. Go the length of the fusible webbing. Leave all of this loose and unstitched, including at the upper, this end and this end. We only want to do from the beginning of the fleece all the way across on both sides. Leave the rest of it unsewn. So now I've sewn all the way down the length of the fusible fleece on both sides. Now I can turn this out. I do not want to cut this off until I verify that it fits my snowman correctly. And I think this will be the easiest way to make this cute little hat for my snowman. So let's turn it out here, see what we ended up with. Oh yes, this is what I had in my mind for his hat. And I think that will be really easy to handle. Now, the reason why I want this long is when we create the brim for the hat, I can fold that over the edge and attach it to the brim, and that should give me the right height of the hat once I create a brim for it. So we'll do that next. So we can test this out. My snowman is still wet and drying, but looking really smashing. So if we try this out, look there, we have a perfect fit for our snowman. So we just need to put a brim around this. So let's do that next. Okay, so the brim of our hat has got to be 7.5 inches around in diameter in order to fit around this. And because I made this really simplified for the hat, I need to make this oval shape. Sometimes the best way to do that is, this being a black fabric, I probably need to do this marking on something like paper. So basically, I've got my hat just sitting on a piece of paper. I'm going to take a pencil, and I'm going to draw around the outer perimeter and just kind of rough draft pencil mark it. That's not too shabby, but I know that it'll be oval. I can clean that up real quick and make it more elongated of a circle. Now, I want that brim to be at least 1/2 inch wide, so that's going to really truly put me at the edge. Well, sometimes you can lay your pencil down, and you know, eyeballing it about 1/2 inch, and you need a more flatter surface, but you can lay your pencil down and determine that just by finding you a spot and turning it while you're marking it and following what you got. You just kind of pick a spot on your pencil. Now you can be more exact and precise if you desire. You have to go by your comfort zone and what is easier for you. But if you just lay that pencil down and let it do the work for you, and just pick you out a spot with your eyes on your pencil as to where that line needs to hit for you to see it, and just keep going around until you get back to your beginning point. And then when you look at it, you can tell right here I've got this a little more narrow than I do the rest of it, and that is actually where I begun. So I can come out a hair more, just realigning that spot and get that a little bit better. And there we go. We fixed that. Now, what's really cool about this is this will be the center, per se, that we would cut out. We can actually come in a little bit more and make it a little more snug. So I'm going to cut that out. Okay, so here's one I cut out that we drew with a pencil. And I am putting it on his head and looking at it. And I want that to be a little more narrow. So that's an easy fix for that brim, because I can make it this size and it will fit fine. But then there'll be this big gap in the back that I feel like I'd have to compensate. So the easy fix for this is I'm going to cut it as center as I can. I got my cutting mat here. I can pretty much eyeball the center. Remember, this is primitive. You make it as you go. You make it work. So if I need to cut that down and bring it in more, I can snip that side and close this up by bringing this over as much as I think it needs to be. So I'm going to do at least 1/4 inch on this side. And before I tape that, while it's still laying here centered, and I've cut that center, I'm also going to cut this center. Alright, now I can move that in a bit on the top and the bottom to close up my measurements there. Kind of get them meeting one another. That's looking better, smaller, more appropriate. Let's see what that gives us. Alright, so I taped it, And now I put it on his head, and that's looking much better because I know that when I do the actual hat fabric, that's going to be just right. So that gives you an idea of where I'm going with this. So now I can cut me out a brim and put me some fusible fleece on it. And the best way to do something like that is to lay it down just like that and cut it. Now I'm just going to fold it over and glue it because I will cut the brim out by the pattern. That extra fleece is not going to hurt anything. It will be situated when we create the hat. So I've got my glue gun going here. It's a little bit different doing the fabric. No worries, all that will be cut off. Try to get that harness down. There we go. We'll have a little lump there. No worries. Okay, now we have our pattern. And now we can trim and cut this out. Alright, so I'm trying out his hat again, and it's looking good. It's perfect. And all I have to do on this is either paint it, or I can use a black marker. And now I can take my hat, and depending on how you do it, but you just basically are going to push your hat down in there, just like that, in through the hole. That's why we left this 1 inch unattached, is because we are going to fold it over the edge of this brim, right at its seams, and we can either sew that, or we can glue it. It is your choice. And that will attach our hat to the brim real quick and efficiently, just like that. So fold all those sides out and leaving, making sure that you take it up to its proper seam, and you can buckle it down if you need to. You can definitely clip it, but once you get in there straight, shouldn't have any of these creases, wrinkles, because we allowed that open on the sides, and that should give enough spread. Get it straightened out. And that's going to be his hat. Right there. We'll have it. Now, in doing the hat, we've already created our brim. We pushed our fabric through, and now we have it kind of pinned down. Make sure it fits, and trimming up any of the edging to get a good fit. So what I'm going to do is, I know that some of this excess fabric may have to come off, but I am definitely going to pin the brim to that excess fabric to make sure it stays where I want it until I get it glued down. And the great thing about that batting is I can catch it and not catch the hat. So I've got this side done. As far as pinning, I clipped it while I was getting it adjusted. So if you have those clips, they come in real handy, or any of you with your sewing notions. Now remember, we're going to the edge of that batting when we get our hat together. And the only reason why I'm taking so much time to show you about this hat is it is a new way to create one. I've not seen any videos or anyone else do this to show you that there is a shortcut to creating a hat. Some of my pins are just give out. I think I'm going to have to retire them and go with a different one. So let me get this one. I might have to change pins altogether. It doesn't want to go through there. There's glue in there too, so right here on the edge of the brim, and I'll flip this down so you can see even better so what I am yapping about. Okay, so see, I have my pin caught in the fabric. Now, I want to show you, see, I've got the brim pinned on to the fabric that we pulled through the center there. And there, I can make an adjustment on this side and make sure that that brim is got the raw fabric on the inside. Now, and this will give you an idea of where you need to trim or make any changes or easements for that brim, because this raw edge will be taken up by coverage of a cord or rope or whatever you decide to put around that, scarfing or anything that you adorn it with. So, as you can see, I'm ready now that I can go ahead and I can glue that. You do have the option to sew, but if you sew it, you got to know that you're going to go right there and that's got to tilt under. So you're literally going to have to sew with that brim laying up just like that. And I prefer sewing when I can. On this one, I was going to glue it so I could show you how you can do it. But I may just go in there and put a stitch down on that, and then it would still be covered whenever I put the cording around it, and just keep it flipped up. And then we'll also cover this edge with roping. If you need to, you can cut little steps in there so this flowers out more so, and so that may be, and then you can cut off any excess if you want to once you've got it all into place. These are the openings that we left unsewn. We only sewed to that point. You can see my thread right there. And I want to make sure that that stays underneath and it's meeting right with that seam. So now I have sewn my brim on. And as I said before, any kind of scarfing or banding you put around your hat will be covered. And as you can see right here, where I snipped the fabric to flare it out, well, I do not need all that fabric. So now I can just cut that off. There's no need to have that peeking out from under his hat. So I'm just trimming that off. Any kind of scarfing or banding will cover that. And here's the underneath. Here's our snowman. And as you can see, his hat is a perfect fit. Perfect fit. Just need to dress his hat up and make some decisions on his clothing and what he's going to look like. I still may weight his bottom, or I might make him some weighted breeches. Dollar Tree has these fat quarter packs, and this is the $5 one. And I think I'm going to use this one for the brim of his hat. I love them all. These are just it's just a beautiful pack. Excellent pack. That's looking pretty spiffy as the band around the hat. And I'm also going to add this cord down at the bottom edge. Make it look really professional and match this outer cord. So I'm just putting that little cord right there at the bottom, along the bottom of the band. And once that sets, I will cut off the difference. Okay, so the cutoff strip from the band on the hat, I'm going to use as Sunny Scarf. And I literally am putting a dot of glue because I just want it to barely be there. I don't want it to be unmoving. I want it to move. And I want it to have this tattered effect to it. So I am sliding my hand on that cotton fabric to get it to ravel. And then, of course, the short piece on the back. Make it look really, really primitive. looking with a little frays and stuff going on the fabric. And then anything that looks too out of place, I can snip it to make it more suitable for what I'm going for. That will help that. Same thing with back here. Rubbing it backwards on that raw where it's been cut on the bias, so it's going to give real easy. I also have this little rusty star, and I got me out some bells. With the rusty star, I'm going to put that on Sonny's hat for him, and I'll probably add some greenery. I definitely need to dust this with cinnamon first. So don't forget to kind of give it a shot of mist before you put your cinnamon on there. That'll help it to stick better. There we go, to dust it on. Then of course you can use your brush to dust your hat like you do the body. I've already dusted off his body, and that helps to just kind of spread it out and give it that really wholesome primitive look. Now I can add his star right in the middle. I only need a dot to see how that, because this is beveled, so we'll see what more we're going to need. But what I will do is put my finger in there, put that in the center of his hat, and I'll press it so that way it is stuck in the middle. In doing my hat, I got me a little piece of greenery I'm going to put right there. See how that goes. Really spread that glue out. I just do not want a lot of glue on my hat. Work too hard to fix it, make it pretty. Might have to change it out in years to come, and this lasts forever. Got this berry. I want to use it. I've got me 3 bells. These are kind of the reddish copper looking that I got from Dollar Tree. You could always paint them if you want to, but I think just that little bit of hint of red is going to do it. And just that one berry. Just that purity and, you know, just very primitive. Just the smallest amount makes it look groovy. So I've got me some pins here, and I'm going to pin on his bells so that if his attire changes at a later date in years to come, I can very easily just unpin those bells. And these black pins, safety pins, I always keep them different sizes. These are a little bit bigger. There's some smaller ones. These are good for tags and putting all kinds of things on. Put these bells on with this. And the great thing about these, if I remember correctly, when I open up these, I can actually put the bell on, if this is big enough, and I can actually go ahead and push it on through so that the bell is actually here on the front part of the safety pin, so that when I put it into his clothing or pin it onto his body, the bell will actually be on the opposite side. Then I can just close it up, and there we go. Got 1 bell, 2 more to go. Now put them on the same way. These are just that small enough that that little bell right there can be pushed. Just, you got to do it carefully. Take and just push it, and there's on that side. Once again, do the same thing. I'll come down about 1.5 inches or so. I just kind of eyeball where I want them, or how far down to put them. I love that his fabric is really good and coffee dyed and stiff. It's got that squeaky noise to it. He's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. Okay, so we got our bells on, we got our scarf going here, we've got our hat fixed up. Now we can style his arms. We can go ahead and start shaping up his joints and getting him looking a little more unstiff per se. So you might want to bend him at his joints. And then as far as his legs, that really depends on if you're going to give him some knees, which I am. And then that way I can sit him up. And so just figuring out about the halfway mark. Try to make them match. That's important. Give him a little more relaxed joints there where he's sitting. Okay, got his arms joints going here. Bend them a little more. Now, what's really clever about this is the candy canes we did in the other video. I can go ahead and set him up with the candy cane as though he's holding the candy cane. So instead of pinning him, I'm just going to prop him and set him where he can hold different things, like this candy cane, for example. Now we can put his top hat on. I'm not going to glue his top hat. That way I can change the features of it and do different things with him. But he is sitting, he's holding his candy cane, he has his bells. So enjoy, do your own, and add or take away as much as you need. But now you can make one of your own. Do send me pictures and images, tag me, and let me know when you make your sunny primitive snowman. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. We are going to do many more DIYs, and there's many on the channel you can enjoy. Share this video with a friend, someone who's interested in beginning or who would be interested in making the sunny primitive snowman. Until the next DIY, this is Elizabeth. Leave comments. I look forward to reading them. To make your own, and you can bend his joints and restyle him and fashion him in any way that you like. And he's looking really dashing. Until the next DIY, well, I'll be crafting y'all.